we've all had the opportunity to lead innovation in different organizations. Leslie, there's lots of parts to innovation. So how did you come to be or focused on or become what I would call a guru in prototyping in particular?
Well, I was anointed by Alberto Savoia on the mountain in Mountain View.
Yes, yeah.
No, not at all. So through building lots of startups and failing at a lot of them and driving innovation in companies, I got really frustrated that we're spending a lot of time and effort building things that nobody wants and building products and services nobody wants, and we can all nod along to that probably.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there might be a better way to do it. And I hunted around a bit to find a way to what this approach could be, and discovered pretotyping. And it wasn't something I made up. It was created at Google and taught at Stanford by Alberto Savoia, who written the book The Right Hit, by the way. And I decided to pretotype it and see if this was a way to do it in the enterprise. It's really easy to test ideas and run experiments in startups and scale-ups on a small scale. But when you hit the enterprise barrier and you're doing this with hundreds or thousands of ideas and experiments, how do you actually test that? And it's like any change program. What you need to do is get the people, the tools, the resources, the politics, the risk or risk mitigation, all these kinds of things. And that became a really interesting problem. So it's one of those, I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment. It's a hard problem to solve. As you know, anyone in innovation is you're never going to win. You're just pushing and pushing and pushing because it's counter to people's normal behavior, which is to not accept failure, to pretend that failure doesn't happen. And it's actually the reality, and you're trying to just show reality and try and get data over opinion. So that's what led me to do this. So I'm 8 years in on the 15th of September with Exponentially. So pretotyping has been my lifeblood for the last 8 years.
Yeah, great. Talk to us about examples you've seen in, I guess, product or non-digital worlds as well of people prototyping.
Before I do that, just step back a bit around the difference between a pretotype and a prototype.
Let's do that, yes.
Should I touch on that?
Yep.
So my job is to stop people getting to your job, basically.
Yeah.
And what I mean...
What are you trying to tell me?
No. I mean, increase the quality of what you get. So the simple difference between a pretotype and a prototype. A prototype is asking the question, can we make this thing? A pretotype is asking, should we bother to make this in the first place?
Yeah.
So what pretotyping is doing is before customers getting to you to the point of that of the prototype, we're going out of all these possible ideas, out of hundreds or thousands of ideas. How do we know which ones we should invest in, and how do we reduce risk once again and increase confidence in our bets? And we do that through rapid experimentation, typically in the digital space. And what we're doing there is really answering the question of, in the best case scenario, what would have to be true for customers to even engage with this to give us data over opinion? And data is doing something. In the digital world, the simple way to think of it is a website with a value proposition on it. Do you want to buy this thing? There's a buy button. You click the buy button. We've got data. And obviously, you don't go straight to asking for money. But that's what a pretotype does differently to a prototype. So I just wanted to sort of get that on the table.
It's really important. And while we're on that one, I think one of the questions someone had talked to me when I was talking about today's event was, is a pretotype or a prototype the same as an MVP or a minimum viable product, or how are those different in your mind?
Absolutely not. So an MVP, and this is very pertinent at the moment because we're going straight from I have a brainwave to let's vibe code a thing and put a thing out there.
Yeah.
Okay. We're still skipping the step, which is, does anybody care? So the first question is, are we solving a problem that matters? And the second question is, how do we know? And the third question is, how do we get data to prove that that's true? And we do this with prototyping without building any technology. So a simple example would be, I did some work over the last month with a crypto exchange, and their first prototype was, can't give the details, but the way they spun it up was, how do you get this in front of a small sample set of customers, like 100, very quickly to get them to do something? And we thought intercom. We could get cohorts, we could put a value prop in front of customers with intercom, we could ask them a question, we can get a measurable result out of that to see if it passes or fails. And what you're trying to do is cross that hurdle of, does anybody care? Sadly, for everybody's listening, mostly nobody cares.
Yes.
Yeah, no one's interested. All your ideas are bad. Nobody cares about your stupid idea. And it's very, very difficult to get any level of interest. So an MVP is later, once you've really refined it, once you've been through, I can't speak on your behalf around prototyping, but once you have enough certainty that customers actually care about this thing, then you make something to put in front of them to go, which is a minimum viable product. to go, do you care about this thing? So an MVP is like build, measure, learn. Prototyping is learn, measure, build.
Yeah, excellent. Can you share some examples? I know like we worked on one together where we were able to bring a new product to the market in 60 days from thinking about it to putting it on the shelf.
Yeah, and that's such a great example. 60 days for a physical product from inception of an idea to being on shelves is astronomically fast. And I love this project. It's a favorite one because, of course, I met Murph there. Yeah. And, it was working with Carlton United Breweries on a new to category launch for their RTDs in the actual brand and its first launch of a seltzer. And why that was really breakthrough is we ran what was called a design sprint. People know them in different shapes and forms, but the purpose of this one was really to bring the agency in-house, to bring the marketing teams, all the decision makers into this design sprint framework. And then us as the sort of innovators, we brought the ideas to life. So we translated the brand, the pack, and all the communications into real life physical prototypes. So when we went to the consumer groups, which we did iteratively over about 3 days, each time we could test a new iteration, refining that brand proposition, refining the pack proposition, and refining, the whole proposition as a whole. Like, what's the concept we're trying to convey? Do people want to buy this? What effects is it between a squat can and a slim can, Because when you're going, especially for them, when they're going into a new category that they've never been in before, it was so critical for them to get the best feedback and insights they could, and they wouldn't have been able to do that without the physical prototype. So for them, and it'll be great to hear what you thought of it, being on the other side, Adam, and being with Carlton United. But for us, it was all about enabling your team to de-risk and accelerate that development process.
Yeah, look, I think that I was leading innovation there at the time, and we looked at it and we said seltzers were huge in the US, and they're going to come here, and they're going to come here quickly, and first to market's going to be really important. And we knew all the principles around design sprints, and I just said to my team, let's just take the what would have to be true mentality and say, for us to develop the product, the packaging, the branding, all of these kinds of things over 4 days, or I think it was 3 days or 4 days, talking to consumers, what would have to be true. So we had you and your team there ready to print new labels, to 3D print different can shapes, these kinds of things. We brought in our design agency who was sitting in the back room listening to the feedback and going, oh, okay, the font is like the font's too plain. Let's try something with a serif. And they were mocking it up while we're still talking to consumers. And we had our technical team in the kitchens at the food science lab there, changing the amount of alcohol. Well, it tasted too much like vodka. Okay, we'll put less of it in. They were changing the flavor proportions and mixing new flavors in the background. People said maybe the lime should have some mint. They got some, and they were ready to go, and we were changing things live. So it was all about asking that question of not why can't we do it, but what would have to be true for us to do this? And we didn't answer every single final part of the product there, but by iterating so quickly, that's how we were able to then get in the remainder of these 60 days, the actual product, no pun intended, because it was called actual, up and on the shelf so quickly. So that was huge.
As a prototype, I created I haven't even thought about this, the Global Pretotyping Summit of 2019, which I completely made up over a few beers, and accidentally 4 customers decided they want to do it, and they came with. So for 2 weeks, we went to Consumer Electronics Show to look at what's happening. Went to, which was in Vegas. We also went to San Francisco, Mountain View, Google, Facebook, all those different companies, just to get on the ground and get a feeling of what people are actually doing. And I think a key takeaway there would be learning that someone like Facebook, for example, runs 10,000 or so experiments a day concurrently. So a day, like all the time.
Wow. Yeah.
And they release products and features automatically based on data. This was then. They're still doing these things. So it's really about getting on the ground, getting a feeling for what's actually happening.
Yeah, amazing. One of the other things that people may be, I guess, intimidated by or may have not started down the path because of might be thinking about having the right tech or right capabilities or the right network of partners to actually start. So talk to us about that. Like, I know we're starting annually. You've now built a a whole network of people that can help with different types of things. What's your advice to people in terms of getting started?
Yeah, look, and it's probably the most common question I get asked as well, where it's, how do you get started with prototyping? How can you access it? And I mean, just like we're talking about prototyping, there is a suite of different, software and solutions that can help you prototype. But my biggest advice is just getting hands-on. It's a practical tool, right? There is rough prototyping in the physical realm. You can start at rough prototyping, which is legitimately like buy a competitor product and get Play-Doh and literally map it on. Get your phone. There's plenty of free 3D scanning apps where you can scan in that thing, change the label, reprint it, put it on the thing. There's some really rough tools that you can do to quickly, within, an hour, get a rough prototype to give you feedback and inform your decisions, right through to then, I've got this whole little suitcase of goodies in front of me, where you go into the more standardized sort of prototyping technologies. You've got CNC milling, we've got 3D printing, the most common one, but you can also look at like casting for like silicon prototypes. And these are all things that can be done within a couple of hours. And that's, what I'm trying to say is that it's so accessible at the moment. Like it's been more accessible than it's ever been in my entire career. And it's only becoming more so with technologies. So for business, it's always about maybe talk to someone that has experience in it and see if it's something that you can implement yourself. And if not, then work with, someone that does it for a full-time gig. But I think it's something that I always recommend people can totally pick it up and do it themselves.
Yeah. Yep. How can people get better at prototyping? Where can they begin, or if they've begun, what can they go to get better in this space?
Yeah, it definitely links to what Leslie said earlier. Half the battle is, knowing about it and then knowing where to start and, being accepting of that process within your workflow, whether it be in a larger business or a smaller business. If you don't have that, then it's going to be really hard, right? And once you do, and hopefully you do get that sort of support that you need, it's much more, from my perspective, especially in the physical world, it's about getting hands-on. Like I hate to say it, it's like, grade school art class. It's literally like, get out the Stanley knife, start whipping up things to get a understanding of size, shape, form, and factor. So for me in the physical world, it's really good because it's very practical, very hands-on. And then, there are tools. There's so many free tools out there. 3D scanning, 3D printing, so accessible now. Like there's just so many technologies that make prototyping in the physical realm quick, easy, and cheap. That it's more of convincing either your business or convincing yourself where can you make time to make this part of your process in developing these solutions.
In my world, Alberto has written a book called The Right It, so you could read that.
You should read that. Absolutely.
Absolutely read that. Yep. There's a free PDF ebook, which was the prototype of prototyping back at Google. There's a whole story around that, which you can get on the exponentially.com website. I made my online training course free on YouTube over the last 2 or 3 weeks, so that's available to go and educate yourself. Just what does this even mean? What's the way of thinking about it? There's Rapidly software you can download and try and use to help you through the process. And there's lots of resources around doing this. So once again, with this Adam, multiple Adams, is just do it. Like, don't be scared to fail, because you're going to fail. Like 100% you're going to fail. But the risk or the outcome of the failure is you're going to learn something. So just do something. You've got a great idea that's been bothering you for like a year and you've been sitting churning on it. Whip up a website, put it out there and see what happens and learn. Just get in.